Okay, so you've seen the headlines, right? They are everywhere. A new war is blowing up in the Middle East, and it is really easy to feel completely overwhelmed by all the noise and, frankly, the fear. So here's what we're going to do. Over the next 5 minutes, we're just going to cut through all of that and give you a clear, direct breakdown of what is actually going on.
And let's just get right to it because this is the heavy question on literally everyone's mind. Is this it? Is this the start of World War III?
All right, let's be super direct. For now, the answer is a clear no. This is not World War III. But, and this is a big but, to really understand why and to get a handle on what this conflict is, we need to look at who's involved and what led us to this point.
So, first things first, let's get to the very core of this thing by answering the most basic question of all. Who is actually fighting?
When you boil it all down, at its heart, this conflict is between two main sides. You've got Iran over here, and on the other side you have the United States and Israel. It's so important to get that this isn't some global free-for-all, it's a fight centered on these specific adversaries.
Okay, so how in the world did we get here? You know, every conflict has a catalyst, that one spark that just ignites the whole fire. Let's take a look at how this one got started.
You can actually point to a specific date when this whole thing escalated into open warfare. February 28, 2026. That's the day the US and Israel launched a coordinated attack on military and nuclear sites deep inside Iran. Well, Iran's response was immediate and direct, a massive retaliatory wave of missiles and drones. That tit-for-tat, that action and reaction, that's what kicked off the open hostilities.
But why? Why did the US and Israel decide to attack in the first place? Well, there were three main reasons given, and each one touches on a tension that's been simmering for years. First, they wanted to stop Iran's nuclear program, once and for all. Second, they aimed to push back against Iran's growing influence across the region. And third, and this one's a huge economic driver, they wanted to secure control over the world's most vital oil shipping routes.
And this is where that ripple effect comes in. You know, if the main fight is between Iran and the US/Israel, you might be asking yourself, wait a minute, why is a place like Dubai getting dragged into all of this?
The answer really comes down to geography and alliances. You see, countries like the UAE are involved because they host American military bases. So when Iran decides to retaliate against the United States, it doesn't try to target the US mainland. It targets American military assets that are right there, within its reach, in its own backyard.
And the sheer scale of that retaliation was, well, it was staggering. Iran launched over 300 missiles toward targets in the UAE.
And as if that wasn't enough, in addition to all those missiles, they launched more than 1,600 drones. I mean, this was a massive two-pronged assault. It shows you just how serious their response was, and that these weren't random attacks. No, they were very targeted strikes on military installations.
So let's circle all the way back to that big World War question we started with. Now that we have a bit more context, we can actually define the term properly and see exactly why the current situation doesn't fit the bill.
A true World War III isn't just a large war. It is a very specific thing. It's a global conflict where most of the major world powers, we're talking China, Russia, the entire NATO alliance, India, are all fighting directly against one another. It's a massive, multi-continental catastrophe.
So what we have on our hands right now is a regional war, concentrated in the Middle East. It's incredibly serious, don't get me wrong, but it hasn't pulled in those other major global powers as direct fighters. However, and this is really important, experts are warning that the risk of this escalating is very, very real. Which leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, the global stakes. If it's just a regional war, why is everyone, all around the world, so worried?
This is why it matters to everyone, far beyond the Middle East. Iran's missiles can reach way beyond its borders. You've got this massive US military presence in the Gulf, which is basically a powder keg. The conflict is a direct threat to the global oil supply, which could make prices at the pump go through the roof worldwide. And on top of all that, there's the constant risk that other powerful groups like Hezbollah could get drawn in, which would dramatically widen the war and shake the entire global economy.
So let's just recap the key takeaways here. The core conflict is Iran versus the US and Israel. Places like Dubai are involved because they host US military bases. The whole thing was sparked by a mix of factors: Iran's nuclear program, a struggle for regional power, and control of oil. And the big one, is it World War III? No. For now, it remains a very dangerous regional war.
And that pretty much brings us to the end of our breakdown. We've established that this is a regional war today, but the lingering question for all of us has to be, what about tomorrow?